Yep.
Mike
We
Sarah,
got her.
John, Mike Sarah.
Okay,
Watch the mics.
we'll bring this meeting to order. This is a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Pelham. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. This public meeting has been called to satisfy requirements of the Planning Act and council bylaws. Notice of this meeting has been given by prepaid first-class mail to all persons listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 60 meters or 200 feet of the subject properties. In addition, a public notice sign has been posted on the lands. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed, should the application be approved. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. The purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. Please state your name and mailing address for the record. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Specific wording for conditions will be determined by the committee following the public portion of this hearing. All interested parties are invited to be present. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. There are colored forms for this purpose, which are available on the back table. Any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the Ontario Municipal Board within 20 days of the decision for minor variances and within 20 days of the mailing of the decision for consent applications. I'd like to introduce the hearing panel. On my far left is Brian D. Martell.
Hi.
The next is John Claassen. I'll chair. I'm Wayne Lockey. On my right is Nancy Bizzato, our town clerk and secretary of the Committee of Adjustment. Her assistant, Judy Shepard, on my far right. Does any member of this panel have a pecuniary interest in accordance with the Municipal Council of Conflict of Interest Act in any of the applications to be considered at this hearing?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
I have none, Mr. Chair.
And I have none. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
None that I'm aware of, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone in the audience who is interested in this application? And the first application will be file A62018P. And if anybody is here to represent that, if you'd come up and take a seat here and state your name and address for our secretary.
Mr. Chair, my name is Martin Rue. I am the new owner of Kimberly Court, 2371 Kimberly Court.
Okay, thank you. Okay, would you like to read the correspondence?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. The application was made by the previous owner, Craig Tumeth, because he was the owner at the time the application was made. We were aware of the pending sale, but that doesn't negate the application in any way. Okay, so the excerpts from the Planning Department report. The subject land is located on the east side of Kimberly Court, lying north of 16 Road, and known municipally as 2371 Kimberly Court in the town of Pelham. The subject land is zoned agricultural A in accordance with the town's zoning bylaw 1136/1987 as amended. The minor variance application requests relief from section 7.2D, the minimum front yard, seeking a 12-meter setback, whereas 20 meters is required to facilitate construction of an extension to an existing barn with no change in livestock capacity. And also with regard to the building height, seeking a 5.2 meter height, whereas 3.7 meters is required to facilitate the construction of an accessory building to the dwelling. The Public Works Department offers no comments. The Building Department just requests that all necessary permits be obtained prior to construction commencing. The Fire and Bylaw Services Department had no comments or concerns. The region offered no objection, provided no new plumbing fixtures are included in the addition, and no public comments were received. As the committee is aware, a minor variance must be judged on 4 tests under the Planning Act. The first test is the variance minor in nature. Our planning department reports that reducing the minimum front yard setback to allow for the extension of an existing barn will not adversely impact the neighborhood, as a large distance still separates the barn from the nearest residential dwellings. The proposed addition is actually further from the property line than the existing barn footprint. Increasing the maximum building height for a detached garage is minor in nature given the rural context. The nearest neighboring dwellings are quite far from the subject site, and any impact by a garage of this stature are undermined by the existing hydro towers which surround the site. The next Planning Act test is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land. Reducing the minimum front yard setback for the barn extension is desirable for the land because it will provide enhanced usability for the existing horse barn, notably a wash stall, tack room, feed room, and storage space. Permitting the accessory building height at 5.2 meters is desirable for the land because it will allow for the installation of a typical roof gable, which is preferred over a flat roof in this case. Given the footprint of the structure, meeting the required height limit at a feasible pitch would prove challenging. Allowing for the detached accessory building at this height would enhance the usability of the subject land and not adversely impact the area given the rural context. The next test, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The Planning Department submits that the minimum front yard reduction of the barn extension does not compromise the official plan's intent because the horse barn addition is not hindering any agricultural operation, which is still the primary use of this property. The accessory building height variance will not compromise the official plan's intent because accessory uses to a dwelling are permitted and the development will not obstruct the agricultural potential of the land or expand into any natural heritage features. The final test, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The Planning Department states that reducing the minimum front yard setback for the barn extension still upholds a reasonable setback from the existing unopened road allowance and will not compromise safety or off-site externalities. Increasing the maximum accessory building height is a minor deviation from the zoning bylaw requirement and will not negatively impact surrounding property, as the current rural context provides large spatial separation between adjacent land uses. Planning staff is of the opinion that the application meets the 4 minor variance tests laid out by the Planning Act. The application is consistent with the provincial policies, the regional official plan, and conforms to the general intent of the town's official plan and zoning bylaw. The authorization of the following recommended minor variances is not expected to generate negative impacts on the adjacent uses or the community at large, and consequently planning staff recommend that the application be approved for a front yard setback of 12 meters and a building height of 5.2 meters, subject to the condition that all necessary building permits be obtained prior to construction commencing. Members, this is an overhead photograph of the subject property. And this was the drawing that was submitted with the application. Mr. Chair, that's all the correspondence related to this application.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Do you have anything to add, any comments, any questions?
No. Thankful for all the work and response that I've been given from you guys.
Okay, does the panel have any questions or comments?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
I have none, Mr. I was there.
Yeah.
He's all alone, except for the guy way back the other side.
Not too many people going to see your sign out there
Oh,
to
my.
complain, but it was there.
Yeah, the sign was there.
Yeah.
All by itself.
Yeah, all by
Sorry.
itself.
I
What kind of
just-
horses are you putting in?
My wife is into horses. She does dressage riding. So
Oh, yeah.
She has 3 horses that she boards currently. So
All right.
moving to this property was kind of a dream of hers that
Oh,
we found.
yes.
So
Nice.
it'll work out quite well.
Yeah. Thank you. I have no other questions.
No.
I'm ready for a motion if anybody would care to make it. Yes,
I move that we accept and approve his application as read.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that?
Do we need to
Yeah, I gotta read that.
discuss the,
Beautiful.
just in case I don't agree with all the reasons?
No. Yeah, the application for relief, section 7.2 minimum front yard, seeking 12 meters, whereas 20 meters is required to facilitate construction of extension to an existing barn with no change in livestock capacity. And also the maximum building height to go to 5.2 meters to the midpoint of the pitch roof, whereas 3.7 is done. Obviously, when you look at the land, it's not going to impact. The decision was based on the following reasons. The variance is minor in nature because no adverse impacts are anticipated. The general purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained because sufficient setback is still held. It won't compromise safety or have a negative impacts. The official plan is maintained because the horse barn addition is not hindering any agricultural operation. It will not obstruct the agricultural potential of the land. The proposal is desirable for the development and use of the land because it will provide enhanced visibility for existing horse barn, and the height 5.2 won't adversely affect the area. This application is granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham, and we've had no objections from any commenting agency or abutting property owners. The Committee of Adjustment considered the written and oral comments and agrees with the minor variance report analysis and recommendation that this application meets the Planning Act tests for the minor variance. The above decision is subject to the following. You have to get all the necessary building permits prior to construction commencing and everything to the satisfaction of the chief building official. So moved.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. All in favor? You're passed.
Everything?
So we will, we'll send you a copy of the notice of decision, and there is a 20-day appeal period that we'll just have to wait through, and then you can obtain the building permit. You can apply during that 20 days, but they can't issue anything until after that appeal period.
Oh, I can apply. Okay.
You can make the application based on the preliminary approval, but they can't issue the permit until after that 20 days is up.
Oh, correct. Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for coming in.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good luck. Hey, just as an aside, I was golfing with a guy and his wife, they came from Rochester. She brought her horse along from Rochester, trailered it down because she couldn't be without it.
Down to Florida, or?
Down to Florida, from Rochester to Florida, so be prepared.
Yeah, they love their, it's definitely something she's loved. She's had a horse for as long as she was 5, so.
Oh, yeah.
My in-laws are coming, her parents are coming back from Arizona. Even today, I think, started to drive.
Oh, then you
back,
got a
so
nice
they're
comment to
talking
give them.
about how you just came back and everything, so. They're not looking forward to the weather that we've been having, that's for sure.
Well, it is a bit of a shock.
Anyway, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, I think we have some minutes for approval.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I do have a place to sign.
See, John, you are
There's
important.
no applications for consent, is there?
Nope. So you just need a motion for the October 3rd minutes.
October 3rd minutes, everybody's read them.
Yep.
I would like a motion to approve them, please.
I move it. Yeah, good, go
Oh,
ahead.
you go ahead, John.
No, you go ahead. I did the other.
Okay.
Moved
I
by
move that we
Brian.
approve the minutes as stated on the correspondence that was received.
And do I have a seconder?
Then I will second that.
Moved by Brian, seconded by John, all in favor? Approved. And now, motion to adjourn. Your turn, John.
I motion that we make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
After nice meeting.
Meeting adjourned. Don't need a seconder for that, do we?
No.
Oh.